Welcome to A Cup and a Conversation. I'm Grant Ongst with the City of Brunswick, and here today with me is Bethany Dentler, Executive Director of the Medina County Economic Development Corporation. Hi, Bethany. How are you?
Hi, Grant. Doing great. Thank you for inviting me today.
Absolutely. So today I thought we'd just kind of have a general chat about the economy. Bethany is a trained economist and quite good. And really, we want to talk about what's going on in the economy today, centered primarily around Medina County, but how things are affecting us and what's taking place. So Bethany, what are you seeing out there today?
Well, Medina County is a pretty special place. We have been a very resilient county, even through the Great Recession. We didn't have that many layoffs, and our companies tend to rebound pretty quickly. We didn't see many companies leaving or shutting down or laying off. And I think part of it is because of the makeup of our community, of our business community. We have a lot of small family-owned businesses, medium-sized companies that maybe they have an international owner, but their executives are very involved in the local community. So I think that kind of collaboration makes us pretty special. So we've had the chance to go out and talk with many of them about how they're handling the current economy, and just watching the trends, I would say, leading up to COVID. We were just going gangbusters. Saw a lot of development, an incredible amount of capital investment and job growth, and COVID hit. And it's interesting, compared to the national level where you just heard fears of recession and shutdowns and layoffs, seeming to go on for several years. We didn't see that in Medina County. Yes, they did shut down because of what was going on at the national and state level, for a couple of weeks. But truly by summertime of 2020, most of our companies were not only back at work, but they were so overwhelmed with orders that they didn't have enough people to do the work. So the next couple of years post-COVID was more about helping them catch up with their, helping them build the capacity to meet the demand. They were hiring like crazy, and the big problem, obviously, national level story, was that they couldn't find enough employees. And so we've spent a lot of time with them on workforce issues. So it just feels like in Medina County, every time there's talk of recession, we look around and say, what recession? Because it's kind of hard to see here. And you've seen that in Brunswick yourself.
I've definitely seen that in Brunswick. If you look along Center Road 303 or Pearl Road, State Route 42, there have been constant new projects coming along. From the first time I walked in the door here 10 years ago with Antonio's Pizza, and people would say to me, we don't need another pizza place, but you have to understand their corporate offices are there. Mm-hmm. There's more to economic development than just a pizza place.
Right, and although they do have great pizza.
They do have great pizza, and if they're making money and paying taxes and employing people, and it's a legal business, that is something that the community really centers around, that this can be a great draw. And in fact, we've toyed the idea with having a pizza road trip, going through all of Medina County and of course ending up in Brunswick, where we've got not just Antonio's, but Ohio Pie and 12 others, and Tilio's, et cetera.
All good.
But it's all good. But the point is that they're all doing well, mm-hmm. frankly. And looking at the numbers that they're producing, people are still spending money out there. And then of course we've got Culver's that are building mm-hmm. right now. We had Chick-fil-A come in, and Chick-fil-A was a big win for us because
First in Medina County,
because that showed that people had disposable income at the highest level for a QSR, quick serve restaurant. Chick-fil-A's don't go where people can't afford them.
Right.
And they're very picky about where they go. And this particular store does very well. It's great for the community. They work in the community. They live in the community. But you go through and you see all these different activities, and you realize one of the biggest things with workforce is we need more people.
Absolutely.
And so it's not just that that people aren't looking. People are looking for work, and I think there are more resources than ever to find the right person for the right fit. But there is going to be a definite need for having more people because the work jobs are still here and still coming. Medina County, and Brunswick in particular, continues to be a hotbed of where people want to want to be. I said this recently when you and I did a program with the Northern Medina County Chamber. I said we believe in small government and big ideas, and we really do. And so I'm seeing that. And then you look along Pearl Road. I mean, we've got Cool Beans, who they've got their second location now. Their first main location is in the center of Medina City. And what did they do? They looked to see, well, where are so many people coming from and buying from? And all this information is tracked. And they've realized, hey, Brunswick.
Right.
So let's put one there.
Exactly. No, it's Brunswick is a great location. It's our largest city in Medina County. Medina County actually has been the fastest growing county in northern Ohio. Kind of, if you draw a line at Columbus and look at all the counties north, we've been the fastest growing county by rate of population growth for the past 3 decades, and that's good for business because where there are people, there are potential employees, there are customers to buy products, and that's why I think we're not only experiencing, great economic development growth in the traditional job-creating industries like manufacturing, and we've got great insurance companies in the county, but we've got construction companies, and that attracts the retail, and that's what we're seeing in Medina County is the growth of those population-serving industries that are attracted here because there's lots of people, and we're continuing to grow. I mean, every time you turn around, you see a new housing development going up in the county.
That's right, and we also see not just those rooftops, but we see a vast variety of rooftops. So we have rooftops where people can start out their careers, whether it be in an apartment or a condo or a townhome, to a beginning house, to their mid-lifestyle home, and then maybe a dream home, and then all the way back through, and then end up in a senior care facility. And having that whole cycle, people go, oh, well, that's, I could start here and live here and end up here and still be in town with family and friends and relatives. And that's important. But you talk about growth and areas of what are we seeing out there? Well, 4.5 years ago, we built the community voted on a bond issue and voted for a new middle school. It's been fantastic on Pearl Road. It's beautiful. The technology, the education, the whole bit has really improved dramatically, and it helps the whole area. Now the community has said, now we need a new high school, and rightfully so. So we're going to get this new high school. They're in the midst of building it now. And that, again, is going to help drive more people wanting to come here, not just for the educational purposes, but to see that consistent investment within the community. And right around the corner from there is the new fire station. And that new fire station will enable more access to safety services than ever before.
And there's tremendous support in Medina County for those community services, for education. Medina County is unique amongst the state's 88 counties in that our citizens voluntarily voted a sales tax increase upon themselves to fund the capital needs of our schools. So Brunswick has clearly benefited from that, taking advantage of that. There have been new high school campuses all over the county. And I think that goes to show the support and the importance of education to our residents. In fact, when you look at the state report cards, the last state report card showed that Medina County was tied for the highest school report card ratings in the entire state of Ohio. And that is significant. We're competing with much larger and more well-funded, urban districts. But we've got great support in Medina County for our school districts.
Well, we talk about this on a regular basis, and let's not forget, of course, we've got probably the greatest career center in all of Ohio, in our humble opinions, with Steve Chrisman leading the way and his entire team. But we always say we go around the state and we know a lot of people in the economic world, and you see a lot of perhaps infighting or not necessarily cooperating. In Medina County, we talk to each other.
Absolutely.
And our government talks to Medina's government, which talks to the county government, which talks to Wadsworth and Lodi and Seville. And I mean, we all have to be connected somehow.
Well, and the great thing about, I think, our organization, Medina County Economic Development, is we're a nonprofit economic development organization, but we are based in the seat of county government. We're in the county administration building. And the beautiful thing is that many years ago, the leaders who put the organization together saw the importance of that collaboration between the public sector and each of our private sector organizations. So we have on our board, we have you representing the city of Brunswick. We have the mayors of Medina and Wadsworth. We have a county commissioner representative. So we have those as standing seats, and the other 21 are private sector. So it's a great balance. We get a lot of consistency and an opportunity for our public sector partners to work together, to come together and work on common issues that the entire county faces. And it's been very good for Medina County. If there's a need in Brunswick, legislation at the state level, for example, that impacts only Brunswick, the county views it as something that impacts the entire county. And so we come together and we rally around our communities to support them, because we know that when one succeeds, we all succeed.
And we did that, for example, with a thing called PACE financing through an ESID, an Energy Special Improvement District, and PACE is property assessed clean energy. And what does that really mean, Bethany?
So it's a unique way to fund an energy efficiency improvement, primarily right now for a commercial or industrial property owner, if they're looking to, say, put solar panels on their roof, because it will make them more energy efficient and in the long run save them money. Then this PACE program is a loan program where we would identify a lender, and once they approve the borrowing, it has to go for approval through the Medina County Energy Improvement District Board. So you and I serve on that. And it's made up of officials from throughout the county. And so once that loan is approved, it actually doesn't get repaid every month. It's repaid through a payment, through a special assessment on your property tax bill. And so that helps the property owner with their investment dollars. It helps them with their capital stack. They can put it in a different category, and it helps them save upfront money. So if they're just doing an energy efficiency improvement like a solar project or replacing the LED lights in your factory, then 100% of that cost, if it's all energy efficiency, can be borrowed up front. So it saves on the down payment, it helps with cash flow, and it helps with the repayment in the long run. And that loan actually stays with the building. So if you were ever to sell the building at some point, you wouldn't necessarily have to have that loan follow you. It would stay with the building.
Right. And the interesting thing about that was the city of Medina, the county of Medina, the city of Brunswick, we worked together to have this happen. And of course, our commissioner, Steve Hambley, he was down in the State House at the time and helped get that passed so that we didn't have to be right next door to each other.
Right.
The law used to say you have to be literally border to border from community to community, and you couldn't skip over.
Right. It was
now you can be in a county. And so the city of Medina can have an ESID, the city of Brunswick can have one, but we can be under the same umbrella.
Right. It was a very inefficient law, very inefficient way to do things. And so it's good to have leaders who also see that and are able to help us make those changes so that we can carry out our work at the speed of business, truly.
That's right. That's right. So there are a lot of ups and downs in business over time. And right now, we're seeing some. I don't want to call it ups and downs. I really want to call it, because business is still, from what I'm seeing right now, still doing well, and they're still moving forward. But we are seeing some uncertainty. What do you make of all that?
So we talk to a lot of companies. We probably talk to over 220, 250 businesses a year. So we are able to gather information from a variety of industries. And right now, if you talk to a transportation company, for example, they're in a bit of a recession because of what's happening in the global circumstances. But our manufacturing companies have been booming. And right now, the other good thing with regards to workforce, we are seeing more people actually enter the labor force. We're up 2,000 people in the labor force from just a year ago. Which is a very good sign for our employers who need those folks so desperately. There are plenty of open jobs still available, and companies still have expansion plans. So, I look around and, just in the past month, we've talked to probably half a dozen companies that are looking at building new facilities. They're expanding, they're growing. Medina County is a very attractive place to do business. As we have talked with them, particularly over this past month, There is some concern about what's going on in the global economy, and particularly with tariffs. We've heard a lot about that. We have a lot of companies in Medina County that are in the steel industry. And so those are of particular interest. How are they being impacted by steel? So we have some European companies, for example, which have been importing steel from Europe. And when we went through this a number of years ago, they were basically able to get exceptions so that they could continue buying European steel, because the American steel market, it takes a long time to open a steel company and to expand those companies. And so I don't know that they're going to see those lowered prices or being able to buy American right away. I think that there may be some long-term advantages, but there's going to be a lot of short-term pain for companies who are either themselves going to have to absorb the cost of a tariff. And we should probably start calling it what it is, which is a tax. It's a tax on the American importers who are bringing goods in from foreign countries. And so they have to pay that tax. That tax doesn't, get paid by foreign countries. So that puts a pinch on their finances, and they're either going to have to absorb it or pass it along to customers, which you hear a lot in the news about customers paying increased costs. That's why, because they're passing those taxes along to customers because they can't absorb them and still stay in business. So there's a lot of companies who are concerned about that.
Right, and it's really, when you look at it, there are products out there in the world that certain companies make that they're only made in certain parts of the world. So, there might be only one specific type of steel made in one specific type of plant, say in Asia or in Europe or in Africa or in America, and vice versa, where we might make things that aren't made in other areas as well. And that's where that global trade has come in successfully across the board for years and years and years. And as we know, we would all love to have everything made in the United States at all times.
Absolutely, if we could.
Absolutely. 100% support that. However, we have to talk about labor and we have to talk about population. And quite frankly, we don't have that population anymore. And we know that we've had a declining population in the state of Ohio, for example, for years. We lost a congressional seat. The projection is we may lose another congressional seat come the next census. So these are worldwide matters, and they affect all of our businesses here locally as well.
So you mentioned that I'm an economist, and it's been a while since I've practiced, but there are some lessons that I learned in grad school that are hard to forget. And so you think about the global economy, and what makes a global economy healthy truly is the specialization and division of labor. When you do what you specialize in, what you're good at, what you can do most effectively and most affordably, then focus on doing that. That's what's going to make you the most profits. And that's why we saw, over the past, 30 years, we've seen a lot of textile manufacturing move overseas, because as America has become more prosperous, our citizens are receiving higher wages. But some of those products have a very tight margin. And so to make those products in America means that companies wouldn't make money doing it. And we like to make money here in America.
That's right.
And so, you send, shoe production or clothing production overseas, and the American consumer benefits because they have lower cost to pay for those products. If everything was made in America, we'd be paying a lot more for most everything, to be honest. So I believe in international trade, so that's where I'm coming from. And I do believe that we have to be careful about what we tariff and how we tariff, because it could result in more production in America. Sure, absolutely.
But it takes time to build those factories.
It's going to take time.
Because remember, a lot of those plants were brownfields, and they were removed on purpose because of different reasons, and so they're not there. And even if they are there, they're shells of what they were. So now you have to have the equipment, and there are delays all across the world on getting the equipment to be able to make that certain item in a certain place.
Right. And it takes time to rebuild your labor force and to retrain your labor force. And we're certainly doing that. I'm glad to see that the state is really focusing on workforce education, workforce technical education, providing more funding to help people learn the trades and skill those kinds of skills. But it takes time.
It does take time.
We have to be patient as we kind of see all of this play out. And
as we've talked about in economics, it really takes, I mean, we joke about it, but it takes 18 years to create a worker.
It's true.
At minimum, 18 years, because they might start working by law, around 16 in a factory under great supervision. And then as they expand into their skill that they've studied or they've worked through an apprenticeship, perhaps in a company, they become a specialist in that area. So, and you don't want to lose those skills in that specialist. But thinking about the cost factor of textiles, for example, we have a business here in Brunswick that literally works on pennies per square inch for their facing material. Now, facing material can be used the term can be used in insulation markets and label markets and whatnot. So it's a general term. So when we're talking about that, and let's say they're going to sell 100,000 square inches, so they price it per a square inch price, and you're shaving an eighth of a cent off. You're shaving a quarter of a cent off. You're shaving off a 32nd. I've personally been in that business before, and it can be brutal. But you have to move lots of volume to actually cover those costs. So when people think, oh, there's all kinds of money in it, well, there's all kinds of risk also.
Right.
And so just like the metals industry, there could be all kinds of success, but there could be all kinds of...
Well, and I think what's good about our community in particular is that the companies in Medina County tend not to focus necessarily on those high volume, low margin products. Right. We have a lot of companies who specialize in high dollar value products, which they might make fewer of them, but they're very customized to the customer. And so by creating a group of companies that specialize and customize, I think we have a much better chance of staying a healthy local economy, because those customized products are in great demand by certain companies. I mean, we've got companies that are making products for SpaceX, for example, and those have high margins. And there's only a few companies buying them, so they're going to be successful because of that. So, we're trying to do what we can to help our local economy, but obviously we're concerned about what's happening in the global economy, because if America goes into a recession, it's going to have an impact here locally.
And I was listening to another economist this morning by chance on the radio, and he guaranteed there will be a recession. He didn't say when, because that's the cycle. There's always going to be a low. There's always going to be something that comes up. But going back to the tariffs for a moment, so when people talk about tariffs because there might be a trade imbalance, well, is there really a trade imbalance? Because perhaps we're buying more product from that particular country, the companies that are manufacturing it there, than maybe we're selling into that country. But what is that country also doing with those extra funds now? Are they buying some of our bonds for the government? Are they investing in real estate here? Are they investing in our employees here? Which is all very likely. So while you may have a deficit on one set of books, on another set of books, you might have a much larger income from that area that it balances itself out in many times.
And the truth is that it is in our best interest as a country to see other countries increase their middle class and make more money, because those countries are going to want to buy American-made products.
That's right.
Early in my career, I actually took a year off from grad school and lived in China for a year. And laying politics aside, just talking to the people that I was teaching and interacted with, they love America. They want to buy American products. They want to learn American English. They wanted to learn American English curse words, which I did not teach them, but their goal was to be like America or to go to America. They want to do business internationally and be respected on the international stage. But, as we grow, a China middle class, for example, they're going to want to buy more American products, which is good for us. And their wages are increasing to the point where maybe there's not as much of a cost differential between a Chinese-made product and an American-made product. So quite frankly, it's in our best interest to make sure that their middle class succeeds, because they're going to want to buy more exports from America.
That's right. And it becomes a cycle. So instead of having everything in China, as we've seen, many companies are starting to move to Vietnam and to other Asian central countries, as well as going into Africa, the African continent, which would be great as well, because I happen to fly fish. That's one of my side passions. And the vast majority of flies that are made for fly fishing are made in Africa. And they pay a small wage, but that small wage is really critical to those families who are living on those funds. So it is a cycle, and in the economics of it, the thing that is balancing across the world is money. Exactly. No matter how you look at it, it's a balancing effect, because when you really get down to it, whether you're in Russia or China or North or South Korea, the one thing everybody's working for is money.
And the U.S. dollar is still
the U.S. dollar is incredibly important. So a dear friend of mine who happens to have his family escaped when communists moved into Cuba, and they're very pro-American, have all become American citizens. They will tell you that the family that is still left in Cuba, it's American money. That is golden. And so when we talk about the economy on a worldwide level, let's not forget that we've established this. I mean, we're the ones who have established the way people want to perceive and move forward. Europe can tell us they want to do this, but the fact is that America leads, and we will always lead in some fashion.
Most productive nation on earth.
That's exactly right. I had a business partner once who was from Germany, and his folks would, at the moment it was 4:30, that's it, they're done. Didn't matter what they were in the middle of, walked out the door. What do we do here? We finish it and then we move on afterwards.
Right.
So
right. We've the work ethic in this country is tremendous, and in our community it's tremendous as well, which I think has made a big difference in why our economy, local economy, has been so stable.
Very much so, very much so. So let's think about one particular company or two in Medina County or Brunswick, for example, that make unique products. What comes to mind?
There's some very interesting companies in Brunswick. Columbia Chemicals, for example, they make chemicals that make metal products stronger and better and more resistant. And you wouldn't think it's important until you have a part that goes bad. It makes a big difference.
That's right, and their products also. We've had Brett Larrick, the president of Columbia Chemical, on the show before, and they make the metal shiny, and they do it in such a way that it's not as hazardous to the environment and to the people working in that world. And so they have unique products, but they are in, for everything from door pulls to when you look at the shiny handles on a car. I mean, and everything in between. Mm-hmm. So if you're out shopping in a big box store and you see a display and you've got a lot of shiny knobs on it, that coating, not the metal itself, but the coating on it, which can be placed on lots of different products, is probably from a company like Columbia Chemical.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies in Brunswick and Medina County that are making very practical products. You've got ID Images, for example, in Brunswick. They make labels for industrial applications.
All kinds.
Right. It's something that most people don't think about. But as I look around this room, there's a signboard over there with a label on it. Somebody's got to make the label.
That's right. That's right. And their company has grown such that this is their headquarters, their corporate headquarters, and they have, I've lost track, maybe somewhere around 10 or 12 other plants throughout the United States and Canada. And they would be a company that would potentially be affected by some harsh tariffs at different points. But I'm also thinking about, a company that we look at and we go, wonder what they do. And I don't want to name them because they're a private organization, but what they do is they make the landing gear for kit planes. Mm-hmm. So you have these organizations that fly these kit planes.
Sure.
And so the landing gear that comes from the factory isn't strong enough for the takeoff landing for hundreds of times. So their whole business is to improve that structure underneath. That's pretty unique. That's a pretty narrow marketplace there. And that's what I look at and I go, that's pretty cool.
You've got some companies here that are also, I don't want to say pharmaceutical industry, but I think one of them is in the nutraceutical industry.
That's right.
You've got AdCal, which they make the patches that you put on your arm to help deliver chemicals that help us
Medicines.
do different things.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
They can help you sleep better, or
That's
maybe
right.
they can help you lose weight, or things like that. I mean, those are some very impactful companies that are making a difference in the quality of life for thousands and millions of people.
And they're very narrowly focused. They're not trying to be all things to all
Exactly.
people. So, well, Bethany, this has been a great conversation. Certainly appreciate you coming to A Cup and a Conversation. Hopefully we can do this again soon.
Let's do it, Grant.
Okay.
Content for this program was produced by the Community and Economic Development Department. Brunswick podcasts are powered by BAT. Thanks for tuning in.